When we talk about these traditions of holiday and things like that, we've been talking on this series of Hidden in the Light. I want you to think for just a moment, because as I was thinking through this, I thought, man, think about the parallels between our Christmas traditions and Jesus. All right, first of all, we gather around and we give what? Gifts. And we see that he was the ultimate gift coming into this world and giving his life for us. You think about this time of year, and you think about how we give a little bit more focus and attention to those who are really in need. And you think about our Lord and Savior, and he was a part of a very poor family. And then finally, you think about the fact that you go out and you pull your best part of your Griswold, and then you put up the exterior illumination, right? You go nuts on the lights outside. And I was just thinking as I was putting this lesson together, this has never hit me. Why don't we put up the lights? To celebrate the light, Jesus. You know, and that's why I'm going to start thinking about it. As I put these lights up, it's not just to celebrate this secular deal of Christmas and think about how we're going to get together, we're going to give some gifts and stuff like that. But I'm going to think about how those lights represent our Savior. And I'm going to get back to that here in just a moment as we continue in our lesson. We're going to be in Isaiah chapter 9 to start out. If you want to flip over there, that'll be our text. And I want to start with a quote this morning from Timothy Keller. The emphasis on light and darkness comes from the Christian belief that the world's hope comes from outside of it. In Isaiah chapter 9, there's a prophecy there that we begin reading in verse 2. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. You think about this, and from the beginning, God said, I want there to be light. God created light. Right in the beginning, he said, okay, I want to give you physical light. And he brought that light into this world. And continuing on with this theme of light, he created Israel, and he said, I want you to be this nation that goes into the world and represents me and who I am. And then he sent his son, Jesus, into this world as light, to come and walk among us and show us how to be love and joy and peace. And now he's got his church. He says, church, I want you to continue on with this theme that I've always had. Going back from the very beginning, there was light. Israel was the light. Jesus is the light, and as representatives of me, as children of the King, I want you to go into your life, into your world, and be light. Now, in order to truly understand the impact that light has on the world, I think we have to understand darkness. So I want us to think about darkness for just a moment. I want to mention a couple of things to you. This week in Atlanta, or rather, I think he was actually moved from Atlanta, maybe down to the coast somewhere. But the man who was found guilty of allowing his child to suffocate in a hot car was sentenced for that child's death. You think about a little bit closer to home, and then some things that have happened. Just this week, a man was arrested, 28 years old, for stabbing his mother to death. And now this young man who's 28 years old spent a great amount of time of his life incarcerated because he chose darkness. There's a trial starting this week of a young man in South Carolina who hated people of different races, and he went into a church and killed people. Hate, darkness, it's all around us. We must realize that we live in a world of darkness. In order for us to find our way, we've got to look to the light. Matthew reiterates this prophecy of Isaiah in Matthew chapter 4. He says, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. And for those who lived in the land where death cast its shadow, a light has shined. So this is what I want to ask you this morning. As you sit here, as you think, hey, where am I in this? What am I doing in all this? Do you recognize the light? Because it says that this light has shone. And I'm asking you, do you recognize the light? Does it really appear to you, not just this time of year, not just as you drive around, not just as you come to church and you hear a lesson like this, but do you recognize the light in your life? John chapter 1, 9 and 10 says, the one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world wouldn't recognize him. The word dark is considered to have two different meanings. Well, several different meanings, but the two main different meanings that it has in Scripture. One means evil, the other means ignorant. Okay, so I want you to think about that for just a moment in your mind. Because, see, the idea of evil, and you think about some of the things we just talked about people stabbing someone, about people committing murder, about people just being mean. You know, that's the idea of evil and that idea of darkness. But then you think about ignorance. All right, I'm in darkness. Why? Because of ignorance. Because of the fact that I'm not fully aware of what that light means to me. Folks, how many of us are walking around empowered by the Holy Spirit every day? We have God living in us. He's doing His thing. Yet we're still living a life that has more darkness than light because we haven't fully recognized what all Him living in us means to us. Does that make sense? Do you recognize the light in your life? Think about what was happening when Jesus came into the world. You think about all the things that were going on. As you read the Bible, as you read history, you see that there was abuse, there was violence, there was abuse of power. The poor were not cared for. Idols were worshipped. And that world sounds a whole lot like the world that we live in today. And here's part of what is hidden in the light in this passage that we read at Christmas every year that I want us to think about. It tells us to look to the light for life. To look to the light for hope. You think about these songs that we sing. You think about these passages that we read. And they say to us, hey, you, look to the light. Recognize it. See it. Do you ever go out and look at the stars? I don't nearly as often as I need to. But my kids, they love to get out of the car at night and say, hey, look, Dad, there's a lot of stars out. And it fascinates them. And I'm like, every night I get out of my car, and what I do, I hurry in the house. Because I've got something else to get to, and I don't stop and think about, man, look at this. Look at God. Folks, we got to slow down. We got to understand what this light means to us in this world, and we've got to not walk around in ignorance, but walk around as people who are living by the light. How is it shining in your life? Isaiah chapter 8, verse 19 says, someone may say to you, let's ask the mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. With their whisperings and mutterings, they will tell us what to do. But shouldn't people ask God for guidance? Should the living seek guidance from the dead? Look to God's instructions and teachings. People who contradict His word are completely in the dark. What's the issue there? The issue in that passage is that we see people in that time living for the world. They were looking for their answers within the world. Now let's apply that today. The answer that God offers to us is found in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 2. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. And folks, that light is shining over us this morning. That light is there for us. But where are you looking for your answers today? Honestly, in your life, where do you look for your answers? How much time do we spend with this right here? How much time do we spend with our Christian brothers and sisters? How much time do we spend pursuing what God has gifted us to do? Where do we find the answers? Well, we look to money, right? If I just had a little bit more money, and we get a little bit more money, and we're still not happy. We look to psychology. Well, this is what this guy said. This is what this lady said. There's so many things that we look to in the world. We find the things that we become addicted to: food, drugs, alcohol. We look to our government for answers. And as we go through these things and we become addicted and we get a little bit of joy, and then it's like, And then we say, well, I found a couple answers from my government. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is where we end up. Where do we find ourselves when we're at the end? When we've done all the research that we can do, looking for the answers within earthly things. We find ourselves in a place where we don't have a lot of hope. How many of you say, man, I wish I could eat 45 pizzas right now? Now, I go with a couple of slices, right? But 45 is going to put me in a miserable place. How many of us say, well, you know what, man, I wish I had $50 million. All right, then I get $50 million, and then I got what I wanted, and then I build a fence around my house, and I hire people to stand at that fence. Why? Because I'm so paranoid now that people are going to come in and take what is mine. You see what I'm saying? I mean, we look for all these answers. Hey, if I just had the newest shoes, I remember when I was a kid, man, I thought, man, if I had these Nikes, I'd be really cool. That would help a lot. Sam told me this the other day. We were talking about basketball season, and we were going to get some new shoes, and he said, hey, I got to get the Nikes. And I said, okay. I said, why the Nikes, buddy? He said, well, they're the ones that make you run the fastest. That's kind of what we are, right? It's that thing that's going to make us who we are. It's going to make us have a better life. And then, I get the 85-inch plasma TV, and man, I am the dude. Everybody in my little circle, they're like, man, he's got an 85-inch. And then a year rolls around, I go to my buddies, he's got a 96, and he's one of them. So I'm asking us to look at these things and see what we find at the end of our quest. As we mentioned when we started just a few moments ago, the Old Testament prophecy said, okay, there's light that's going to come into the world. And then God said, I'm going to take you, Israel, and I'm going to make you light in the world. And then light himself came into the world, and now Jesus is saying, God's saying to us, you who are followers of Jesus, go and be light. Hidden in the light. That's what we've been talking about for some time now. And I like the idea there because there's so much that's hidden there that we don't realize, that we don't spend enough time with. We got to unearth some of this stuff, and we got to put it into practice, and we got to see how it's going to make us into who we want to be. The answers that we found all along, or that we find all along in the light, when they are put into us and they become a part of who we are, they help to bring light to others. They help to bring light to other situations. I mentioned this before. We get really frustrated with our government sometimes, right? We say, well, there should be so many people on welfare, and there shouldn't be so much government aid. And I totally agree with that. And if we as individuals did what we should to help our family members, and the church worldwide did what it should to help others, there would be absolutely no need for government help. So you see what I'm saying? The light within us makes a difference. The light not only changes us, but it makes the world a better place. Jesus came into the world to make it a better place. Israel made the world a better place. The church should make the world a better place. During this election, man, I don't know that we've ever had in my lifetime, had a greater time of division I mean, there's just, almost like hate both ways on this thing. But then you have the liberals calling for the conservatives to be more unified. You have the conservatives calling for the liberals to be more unified. We say that's what we want, right? We want unity. And we say, hey, I want unity as part of a citizen of this nation. If that's what we really want, then you know where it should start. With me. If I'm conservative, I should be a little bit more understanding of my liberal friends. If I'm liberal, I should be a little bit more understanding of my conservative friends. The idea, folks, is this. It starts with me. And if we want things to change in the world, if we want unity, let's start as individual believers who comprise the body. If we want there to be more light in the world, then let's say, hey, I'm going to make a decision as a part of the body of the church at Rome, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I'm making a difference, that I'm bringing light into the world. And if these two bodies that are coming together, if 150 of us decide, hey, you know what, we're going to do something different. We're going to get out here, and we're really going to make a difference. How much would that matter? How far would that go in helping to unite a county, a city, a state, a nation? Because all of a sudden some other church says, hey, I know y'all are doing this, and I look at y'all's makeup, and y'all are different. You got some conservatives, got some liberals, got some blacks, whites, Hispanics, you got poor. How do y'all do this? And then that church goes and they try to do it. The whole idea is it's got to start somewhere. It can start with me. See, once we find this light, we should live in the light and point other people to the light. Point them to the light. We use terminology a lot of times, and I think about terminology that I use. I'll give you one example. Worship service. I never want to use that term again in my life. Because first of all, I don't think it's biblical. Secondly, I think it just conveys so many negative things. Service is something I do that sometimes I do because I have to. I'm going to serve today. And worship is not a service. It's not something I do one time a week. Worship should be a way of life.
Yeah.
So I try to use the term gathering. I like our gatherings. We gather at 9:30. We gather at 11. Why? To lay our lives out, to encourage each other, to fellowship with one another. If this is all I'm doing for worship, then I'm struggling big time. I said that to kind of segue to this, I guess, because I want us to think for just a moment of how we have done this thing. Well, you need to come to church. You need to go to church. Do you go to church? Are you religious? And what are we pointing people to? Church. To individuals who are flawed. Hey, you should come hear our preacher. He's extremely good looking. And despite that fact, I'm a dude who's got some problems. But here's the thing. What if we point them to Jesus? What if we point them to the light? Because this kind of goes contrary to a lot of things that we hear in the world today, especially in church. Because in church we say, well, you can do this. You can create the life that you want to live. You can become this. You can become that. You. And there's nothing further from the truth than that message. It's not about you. Because the reality is, I can't do anything. And the older I get, the more I realize that. I want us to think about something here to kind of reinforce this idea apart from God, I am nothing. Paul said this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10. But whatever I am now, it is all because God poured out His special favor on me. And not without results. For I have worked harder than any of the other apostles, yet it was not I, but God who was working through me by His grace. I mean, I love that whole deal there. And the reason I love it is because, are you a hard worker for God? I mean, a lot of it. And hey, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to get it done. But what's Paul saying to us? I can work as hard as I want to. I can do as much as I want. I can give as much effort as I can toward putting myself in a position where I'm doing some work for God. But aside from God being in me and working in me, it is what? Nothing. And that leads us to another verse that Paul uses that I think we use out of context sometimes, but I think it really applies to what we're saying this morning. Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 says what? I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. I can do it through Jesus. I do it because of Him. He is my strength. He is my source. He is my provider. The only light I have in me is from Him and because of Him. So I want us to think for just a moment about how sometimes the story is just not told as it is. Because hey, we paint the picture and we got a nice little manger, everything's clean and sterile. You start to think about Jesus and the fact that He was born in a barn. I mean, when Sadie and Sam were born over here at Floyd, we went into this environment, they had all these things laid up there, and everybody had gloves on and aprons and things around their face and things over their head. And it was a very sterile environment, you know. But you think about a donkey right here and a cow right here, and Jesus was born right there. And see, we paint the picture, and it's such a clean picture. It's a good story. But how good is it? A teenager gets pregnant. She loses her reputation. A poor carpenter is chosen to be the father, the earthly father of God. The main character in the story, Jesus, is eventually killed. Along the way, his earthly father dies. His earthly family believes he's a fraud. It doesn't sound very prosperous to me. But here's the beautiful thing. How many of us had a daughter get pregnant when she was a teenager? How many of us have had a son to get somebody else's daughter pregnant when he was a teenager? How many of us have had a situation in our lives where we lost our father, where we lost our mother, where we lost our grandfather who was really close to us? How many of us have lived in a family situation where we didn't have a whole lot? We were poor. We went to a concert the other night and heard for King and Country, and the guy got up there, and you got these people who are popular, and they're famous and probably worth a lot of money. And he said, we moved to Nashville from Australia, and Dad had a job, and we got there, and we were there about 3 or 4 months, and he lost his job. And we're from Australia, not Alabama. So we can't drive 3 hours to see family. We don't have enough money to get on a plane and go all the way back home. He said, but all of a sudden, we heard you lost your job. Here's some groceries. We heard your son had a doctor's bill that wasn't paid. Here's $200. This guy starts telling this story about how this community in Nashville just rallies around this family with 7 kids. And he said, we got into a situation where we were completely taken care of until Dad found another job. And now he's in a situation, in a position where he can go and talk to other people and say, hey, I'm up here. I made it through help from God's people. And see, what I'm saying to us is, you look at this story and you break it down, just bare bones, and it's not a very pretty story. But I think that's the whole idea, is that we look at this story and we have a story that you and I can relate to. Why? Because we've been in that situation. And we see, hey, it's tough to get through the loss of my grandfather now a year and a half. It's tough that I'm seeing my family mourn. It's tough right now because we may not have enough money to get the kids what they want for Christmas. You read that story, and you can relate, and I can relate. And those shepherds who were in that field, they saw a great light and said, look, there's a light. And that light brought hope into this world. And here's how I want to end it. I told you I would come back to this. The other night, after I put the kids to bed, I ran to Walmart to buy some groceries and stuff. And as I was going down Turner Chapel Road, I was just driving down through there. I started looking at all the lights, the houses. That's really where the idea popped in my mind. I mean, I've been talking about the light, thinking about the light, studying through that. And I mean, there's literally like 20 houses down there that have lights all over them. And I got to think about this. Why are those lights there? Those lights are there because of Jesus. That's why they're up. Now, these people may not know that, but that's why they're there. That's why we celebrate this time of year. But what about this? What if we drove by and we said, hey, that person's a Christian, that person's a Christian, that person's a Christian, that person's a Christian. I know that because they've got lights on their house. I know that if I see someone who has lights on their house, they're decorated specifically because they are people of God. And what if people who are coming through Rome, or people who've been laid off, or people who've had a rough time, you just go up and knock on the door and say, hey, I saw your lights and I know you represent Jesus and you're hungry. And the people said, come in. We just made some chili. You can eat with us tonight. Or what if the next house down there, somebody went up and knocked on the door and said, hey, I'm struggling, I lost my job. We don't have any way to buy gifts. And we got these children and we just want to give them something. And the people said, okay, let's go to town and let's buy them some clothes. And let's buy them some toys. And you look right back there on that pew, and you look right over here, and you see that this group of people has said, Main Elementary, those kids don't have. So here's some stuff. Here's some stuff. What if just by knowing where people lived and the lights on their house, people understood there's a Christian there. And I know that my life would be better if I go and introduce myself. If I go and knock on their door and tell them what's going on. See, folks, what I'm saying to us this morning is this. In the same way that the shepherds looked and said, man, there's a great light. It is my hope, it is my prayer, that as we walk through this life, people will point to you. People will point to me and say, look, there's the light. A great light came into this world for you. For your struggles, for your deficiencies, for your sins, wherever you are right now, He came for you. He'd love to be in a relationship with you. That's a decision you have to make. Would you receive that gift of salvation today? Can you help me in any way whatsoever? Please come on, stand.